Okay, picture this. It's 1983. You're in the trading pits of Chicago, probably the most chaotic place on the planet. I mean, just pure noise and frantic energy. And right in the middle of it all, you've got this legend, Richard Dennis. This is a guy who took a tiny $1,600 loan and somehow spun it into a $200 million fortune. But he and his partner had this massive disagreement, an argument that would launch one of the wildest experiments finance has ever seen.
So the whole thing really boiled down to this one central question. Are great traders born or are they made? On one side, you have his partner, William Eckhardt. He was convinced it was all nature. You either had the magic touch or you didn't. It was a gift. But Dennis, he was on the complete opposite side. He insisted trading was just a skill, a set of rules that anyone, and he meant anyone, could be taught.
And this was way more than just a friendly debate. Dennis decided to settle it once and for all. He put his own money on the line, famously telling Eckhardt his plan. He said he was going to grow traders from the ground up, just like he'd seen them raise turtles on a farm in Singapore. And just like that, the bet was on. This was a real-life, high-stakes experiment.
So where do you find people for an experiment like this? Well, he didn't go scouting Harvard Business School or poaching from Wall Street banks. Nope. Dennis just put a simple little ad in the newspaper. He wasn't looking for experts. In fact, he was looking for the complete opposite.
And the people he ended up hiring were, well, fascinatingly unqualified. The final group was this motley crew of total novices. We're talking an actor, a Dungeons & Dragons game master, a classical pianist, a security guard, even a woman who people in the industry had told to her face that she'd never make it in the pits. You see, Dennis wanted total blank slates, people he could teach his system to without them having to unlearn bad habits.
The interview process was just as strange. It was really a filter for a certain type of thinking. Forget financial trivia. Applicants got a simple true-false test with questions like this one. So, what would you say? It is important to buy low and sell high. Is that true, or is it false?
The correct answer, at least in the world of Richard Dennis, was false. And anyone who answered true, which is what we're all taught, was immediately shown the door. That one question was this brilliant little psychological test. It was a hint that the system they were about to learn was going to fly in the face of pretty much every piece of investing wisdom they'd ever heard.
So in just 2 short weeks, Dennis taught this group of misfits his entire trading system. It was completely mechanical. There was no room for gut feelings, no trying to predict what the economy was going to do. It all came down to a strict set of rules, built on 2 incredibly powerful principles.
Okay, so rule number 1 was something called trend following. The turtles, as they came to be called, weren't allowed to read the Wall Street Journal or listen to experts on TV. The only thing that mattered was price. The idea is dead simple. You bet that whatever direction the market is going, it's going to keep going that way. If a price is going up, you bet it'll keep going up.
And how they did it was brutally simple. If a price went higher than it had been in the last 20 days, you bought. Period. No hesitation, no second guessing. If it dropped below its 20-day low, you sold. No mercy. Forget buy low, sell high. This was buy high and sell even higher.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. This system was an absolute nightmare to follow psychologically. Why? Because most of the time, markets don't really trend. They just chop around sideways. So the turtles would constantly buy a breakout, watch the market immediately reverse, and be forced to take a small loss, again and again and again. It was like death by 1,000 cuts. So how on earth did they survive that? Well, that brings us to the second, and maybe most important rule, position sizing. This was their secret weapon, their shield. They would adjust how much they bet based on how choppy a market was. If things were going wild, they trade smaller positions. This risk management was absolutely crucial. It's what let them survive all those little losses, so they would still be in the game to catch that one massive home run. All right, training is over. Dennis then hands his brand new traders real accounts, some with as much as $2 million of his own cash. I mean, can you even imagine the pressure? A few weeks ago, you're a security guard, and now you're managing a small fortune. And their new system? It was about to face the ultimate test of all time. The system really showed its power in 1987. By August of that year, the rules were already screaming sell signals across the stock market. So the turtles were going short, betting that the market would fall weeks before anyone else saw what was coming. So when Black Monday finally hit on October 19th and Wall Street descended into absolute chaos, the turtles were just calm.
Well, the S&P 500 just cratered, dropping over 22% in a single day and wiping out fortunes. The turtles were having the month of their lives. Some of them were reporting gains of 60, 80, even 100%. It wasn't because they were geniuses. They were just following the rules, while everyone else was running around guided by pure fear.
So, after 5 years, the experiment finally came to an end. The results were tallied up. The big question was about to be answered. Had Richard Dennis actually proven that you can make a trader, not just be born one?
The answer was a massive, resounding yes. Over the entire life of the program, the turtles had collectively earned a staggering $175 million. Richard Dennis had won his bet with William Eckhardt, and he'd done it in the most spectacular way possible.
But this is where the story gets a little messy. It's not a simple fairy tale ending. Ironically, it was the success that started to tear the group apart. There were lawsuits over money, and even Richard Dennis himself ended up losing a huge chunk of his own fortune later on when he, get this, stopped following his own rules.
And the turtles themselves? They went down two totally different roads. You had one group, sometimes called the samurais, who took the rules and went on to build billion-dollar hedge funds, proving the system could work for decades. But then there were others who just kind of vanished. They knew the secret recipe, but without Dennis there to provide the structure, they just couldn't bring themselves to follow it on their own. So what's the big takeaway from all this? The ultimate lesson from the turtle experiment isn't really about some magic formula for trading. The rules themselves weren't the real secret. The secret ingredient was the incredible, almost inhuman discipline it takes to actually follow those rules, especially when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to do the exact opposite.
And that brings us to the final lingering question. The turtle trading rules are not a secret anymore. They've been public knowledge for years. You could go look them up right now. So why hasn't everyone who read them become a millionaire trader? I think it just proves that knowing the rules of the game is a whole lot different than having the guts to play it.